So I'm sitting in the parking lot at a CVS, and today I just wrapped up an investigation I've been doing for about a week and a half now. I received 1,200 pages of documents from the Maine State Police that I requested. I've only reviewed one file, and I decided to do one file at a time, so I just wrapped up my investigation into the first file, and exactly what I expected to find is what I'm finding. So based on this freedom of information, I just reviewed the first file, and I wrote an article about it, and I want to read the article because that will keep me on point, and I won't this won't turn into a lengthy video where I get sidetracked. I named the article "She Said, Reveals Corruption at Maine State Police" by Joshua Gray, PI from Boston, Mass. On a mid-June afternoon in Portland, Maine, Catherine Bierman was returning home with her son to continue celebrating his birthday. She suggested to her friend Nancy Barone they play a board game, and even offered her a beverage of orange juice. Nancy, who was staying with Bierman as a guest, was not in a very good mood and threw the beverage on the floor. A conflict ensued. According to Bierman's statement to the Portland police, Barone attacked her, pinned her to the ground, and started yelling for people to call the police. Barone's statement claimed the exact opposite. This was a case of she said. When the Portland police arrived, Barone refused to answer the door and insisted that Bierman do it. After a short investigation by the on-site officers from the Portland police, they decided to arrest Bierman and charged her with domestic assault. After the humiliating experience of being arrested and spending a night in lockup, Catherine Bierman pulled herself together and began the process of proving her innocence. To complicate matters, Bierman was a licensed private investigator who knew that a conviction of assault would most likely result in the suspension or revocation of her PI license. Nancy Barone knew this as well and decided to pour salt on her friend's wounds and reported the arrest to Elizabeth Pepper of the Maine State Police Special Licensing Division. Bierman remained optimistic, believing that she did nothing wrong and trusting in the justice system. It was only a matter of weeks before Nancy Barone changed her story and the charges were finally dropped in late October of 2012. There was some indication that Barone may be mentally unstable as well. Catherine Bierman's summer nightmare had come to an end, and she was vindicated of all wrongdoing. Little did she know that her nightmare was only beginning, and a real-life horror was about to unfold. The Maine State Police did not accept the decision of the justice system and decided that Catherine Bierman was guilty of assault. They ignored the rule of law, and they became judge, jury, and executioner. Maine State Police Sergeant Michael Zabarski, during a phone conversation with Nancy Barone, stated very clearly they were not going to renew Bierman's private investigator's license. Barone then boasted repeatedly to Bierman what Sergeant Zabarski had told her. Bierman retreated into depression and embarrassment and felt the pressure of the world weighing down on her. She had done nothing wrong and could not understand why her license would not be renewed. Catherine Bierman's private investigation career began in the late 1980s. She slowly built up a private investigation practice, working with lawyers, insurance companies, and anyone who would give her work. Her story is similar to many Americans who get up every morning and work hard to achieve the American dream. By 2012, she had been in the industry for over 20 years and had a loyal client base and a steady income of more than $50,000 a year. Bierman loved what she did and worked hard for her clients. She was a good investigator that planned to remain in business for many years to come. But all that changed when several corrupt Maine State Police troopers decided to violate her constitutional, civil, and human rights. These troopers are Sergeant Michael Zabarski, Detective David Pelletier, and their boss, Lieutenant Scott Ireland. They did not care that the charges were dismissed. They did not care about due process or constitutional rights. It would have been so easy for them to just follow the law. However, they intentionally and knowingly decided to put her out of business. They prepared the case to deny her renewal application and wrote in their report, I quote, "If Bierman renewed her professional investigator's license, the alleged conduct may provide grounds to deny her application for a professional investigator's license and or initiate a complaint to deny, suspend, revoke, end quote. This quote was taken from a report written in February of 2013. This was after the charges were dropped and she was vindicated of all wrongdoing. So you have to ask, how could an innocent person be in jeopardy of having their professional license taken away from them? Sergeant Zabarsky, Detective Pelletier, and Lieutenant Ireland do not believe in the Constitution. They do not believe you are innocent until proven guilty. They do not believe in the justice system. They believe themselves to be judge, jury, and executioner, and they readied a case to deny Catherine Bierman of her rights. Rather than subject herself to further embarrassment and possibly cause her story to end up in the news, Bierman felt pressure to not even submit a renewal application for her private investigator license. She was aware that they had decided to not renew and did not want to have the denial on her record. These corrupt and lawless troopers had intimidated a successful female private investigator out of business and out of over $50,000 a year in annual income. Why did they do it? The career of Lieutenant Scott Ireland, Detective David Pelletier, and Sergeant Michael Zabarsky shows a history of corruption. There were internal affairs investigations, disciplinary actions, and a history of intimidating citizens. These three troopers should have been fired from the Maine State Police a long time ago. However, laws designed to shield public officials from prosecution and the lack of a citizen oversight committee for Maine State Police corruption allegations have protected them, and they have managed to keep their jobs and even been promoted. But the corruption may go even further. There is a possible illegal and unethical connection between Lieutenant Scott Ireland and Michael Harrington, who owns one of the largest PI companies in Maine. Recently, Lieutenant Ireland nominated Mr. Harrington, a private citizen, to be the chairman of an oversight committee that regulates the PI industry in Maine. This basically means that Michael Harrington now regulates himself in a blatant display of political corruption facilitated by Lieutenant Scott W. Ireland. I had a conversation with Catherine Bierman in August of 2016 and discussed all that happened to her. She was still very emotional and upset, and confirmed the reason for not renewing her license was pressure from, quote, sergeant at the state police, unquote. I asked her specifically if she did work for Mr. Harrington, and she replied that she did not remember, however, did not believe she ever did. This was consistent with my theory that Mr. Harrington may be using his connection with Lieutenant Scott Ireland to put his competition out of business. I also learned that Bierman was not a former law enforcement. It is well known that the majority of PIs are former law enforcement, and the Maine State Police will find any reason to deny a PI license to a non-law enforcement person. It seems obvious that Bierman was competition to the man who Lieutenant Ireland appointed to the Oversight Committee, and she did not meet the good old boy standards to even be a PI in the first place. I learned about Bierman's story through a Freedom of Information request that I submitted to the Maine State Police. Her story sent chills down my spine as I researched it and later spoke with her on the phone. I went through something similar myself and had my rights violated by the exact same troopers. Our stories consisted of the same ingredients. Number 1, false charge. Number 2, case dismissed. And then 3, dirty cops ignoring the law. I posted my story on Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter, and it was picked up by online blogs and shared all around social media. Based on the posts, multiple other victims of the Maine State Police, and specifically these exact same troopers, came forward to me. Private investigator Bob Doyon of Maine was one of the people who reached out to me, and his story was the same. He told me how these same troopers violated his rights. His story consisted of false allegations and then these same dirty cops not following the law. In total, 16 people have contacted me, or I have learned about their story. 3 are now known to the public. 16 victims of corrupt and dirty cops. 16 people who had their lives interrupted for no reason. When I wrote the first article about my case, I asked the question, I wonder how many other victims there are. I never expected the answer would be so many. Catherine Bierman still lives in Portland and is now a grandmother. She manages to survive on the small checks from Social Security and has remained unemployed for over 2 years. Due to the poor job market, she has found it difficult to start over. She was a private investigator for most of her adult life, and the thought of doing anything else is depressing. Bierman is the victim of dirty cops who decided to not follow the law. It's so simple to follow the law, and they decided not to. They decided who was going to be the winners and the losers. The Maine State Police, by intimidating her to not renew her license and making it clear that even if she did renew it, they would deny it, ruined Catherine Bierman's professional career. Bierman did not want her story to go public. And I have to admit, I debated for a while whether I should write this article or whether I should not. However, since I learned her story through a Freedom of Information request of publicly available records, I felt her story needed to be told, because this corruption has to end.